All right, thank you, Hassam. So we certainly have a perspective, the concrete and cement industry do, and what I'll cover are some of those industry goals, some of the innovations that are being adopted, what's occurring in terms of transparency and reporting from the industry perspective, and then what we see over the next 5 years, and that specifically is going to be dealing with the EPA grant that NRMCA was awarded that Peter alluded to a little while ago. So let's talk about industry goals, but before that, the one thing I do want to address is, you know, the cement and the concrete industry have been regulated for many, many years. And so when we talk about green public procurement, this is just an addition to what we have been encountering for a number of years, not only just from regulators, but also impetus from, as was alluded to, media, and also just the things that we do as an industry to make sure that we are not polluting, being wasteful, discharging inappropriately, all of those things. So we've been doing this for a long time in terms of regulations on emissions and waste and discharge, and there has been significant benefit. Right? There's significant benefit in terms of pollution reduction, human health improvement, and certainly an increase in recycling. But if we're going to achieve what the Paris Climate Accords have required, what federal actions and policies are requiring, what state legislatures are requiring in terms of low carbon materials, then there are some things that we have to do differently. Now, the cement and concrete industry has goals. These have been published for the last couple of years, and you can go and read the roadmap to carbon neutrality. But essentially what it says is the cement and concrete industries will be net neutral by 2050, and all along the supply chain there are going to be opportunities to reduce our carbon footprint and get to that net neutrality, and there are going to be near-term, mid-term, and long-term things that we will be doing. All of those things are covered in the roadmap, so I won't get into those, but the information is there, and the perspective from the industry is we will get there. In terms of the things that we're doing right now, one of the things is just to simply be clear about what those goals are. So we want to communicate carbon reduction goals. We want to do the things that we've been doing in the past and maybe do them just a little bit better when we talk about in terms of quality assurance, quality control. If we're going to be sustainable, we have to make sure that we are doing things in accordance with those specifications that drive down the carbon footprint and improve performance. Okay, so good quality control plans are a must. And then we get into the mixtures part of it in terms of optimizing mixtures. Specifications should be allowing the use of innovative cements, SCMs, add mixtures. So we get into that performance engineered mixtures type of specifications. We have to set targets, but to set targets, we often also have to know where we are. And I'll talk about that in just a second in terms of our benchmarking and the industry average that we report. And then take advantage of concrete and the sequestering of carbon, the carbonation that occurs with concrete. We should be taking advantage of that. We can use that in terms of material production. We can also use that when we look at the entire life cycle of concrete and the carbonation that occurs just naturally. All of these things should be encouraging innovation, and that should be not only at the producer level, but also at the designer and the specifier level as well. Okay, so innovation should be done by all of those parties. So let's talk just a little bit about innovations. We could go on in terms of innovations for a long, long time, but I just want to address a couple of things. One, in terms of cement, we can have a significant impact on concrete's carbon footprint, of course. And so we begin to see more and more movement away from our typical ASTM C150 type of cements to the ASTM C595 cements, and in particular, we've already heard mentioned Portland limestone cements, right? Those have been in the marketplace, If you look at the market right now, that accounts for probably 50 to 60% of the use of cement across the U.S. right now is Portland limestone cements. There's other cements, slag blends and things like that, but the cement industry will be moving very, very quickly in terms of the cements that are introduced into the marketplace. And that is going to cause change. I'm an engineer, most of y'all are engineers. We hate change. It is difficult to deal with, but it's life as we know it right now, and it will be life as we go forward, okay? So the complications that come along with changes are things that we are going to have to deal with. We've already had some change in terms of the Portland limestone cement, changes that contractors have to deal with, producers have to deal with, and we will begin to deal with even more. We will get more complex cements into the marketplace. What I'm hearing from cement producers is adoption of materials like this one, LC3s, or limestone calcined clay cements. This is, again, substitute materials for the clinker that is the high carbon emitter. This one in particular using calcined clays. Where you get the benefit is you're replacing about half of the clinker with calcined clay, limestone, and of course the gypsum that's already in our ordinary Portland cement. You get the benefit because you're not having the chemical release of CO2 from the limestone through the kiln, and you have lower kiln temperatures when you're calcining clays. Take all of those things together and you can get reductions of 40% in terms of your global warming potential. So these are the types of things that as an industry we will have to be evolving to and also adapting to as we get to construction. We will also see, we hope, we will also see more and more adoption of performance-based specifications. But when we talk about performance, there's all along kind of the process, there are things that we can do. We can design optimally so that we are reducing the amount of concrete that's needed to actually perform. And that doesn't matter if that's a pavement, a structure, a bridge, whatever it is, we need to optimally design. Of course, we can take performance concepts in our material development as well. And then also, when we look at QA and our acceptance, we can adopt these kind of performance-based specifications, right? So all of this hopefully will lead to better performance, but also carbon reduction. Those are the two things that can go hand in hand. But again, we have to have those things in place so that producers, specifiers, designers can achieve what we're trying to achieve. So when we talk about performance improvements, enhancing strength, increasing tensile capacity, when you're talking about pavements and beams and structures, those types of things, lowering shrinkage, reducing curl and warping, particularly when we talk about pavements, all of those things can lead to better performance and improved sustainability. Let's talk about transparency and reporting a little bit. This is something that NRMCA has been involved with for well over a decade. We have to be able, as an industry, to report where we are in terms of our global warming potential. We do that many different ways. We can do that with environmental product declarations that are facility and mixture specific, but we can also look at us broader across the industry in terms of where we are as an industry, and we produce, NRMCA produces an industry-wide environmental product excuse me, an industry-wide product, our EPD. We report that about every 2 to 3 years. And we started this back in, say, about 2013, 2014 time period. And when we look at how we have done as an industry, as a ready-mix industry, over that time period, we can see that we've reduced our carbon footprint by about 20% over that time period. So we are making strides as an industry to get where we need to go, but we certainly have more work to do. We also publish a regional benchmark report. We have 8 regions across the U.S. Where we report benchmarks that cities, states, other agencies can utilize to be able to assess, thank you, Sam, to be able to assess where you are in your region versus other producers, right? This is important so that we can understand where we are and also how to be able to drive down our carbon footprint. So we report that again about every 2 to 3 years. And again, this is used by many agencies, cities, states, and even the Federal Highway Administration through their low carbon transportation materials grants have indicated that they are going to utilize industry data to establish their benchmarks that state DOTs will use initially to be able to get those low carbon transportation materials grants. They had a timeline for that. We have, as an industry, published our regional benchmarks, but also asphalt, glass, and steel will be publishing theirs as well. If you want to see our benchmarks, you can go to our InterMCA Sustainability and EPD page, and you can see our regional benchmarks. What's a little bit different that we had to do, in years past, we have only reported our average values over a range of strengths in each one of the regions. For states to be able to assess how they are in compliance with the EPA's interim determination, that 20th, 40th percentiles, we had to go back to our data and rerun some analysis, and we have done that. So we have produced that report. It has been reviewed by an FHWA expert task group, and they have passed that along to the FHWA. And again, when those low carbon transportation materials grants are awarded to state DOTs, they can utilize those values as their initial starting point for benchmarking. So where do we see the industry going over the next 5 years? We're very grateful for the opportunity to have pursued one of the grants from the EPA. We were awarded a grant that was just under $10 million. And there was a couple of things that globally will help the industry. One, initially I said that by 2050 we wanted to be carbon neutral. There's an interim step by about 2030. We wanted to be at about 50% lower than we were in 2014. With the EPA grant, we see that we should be able to accelerate that so that we are at about 50% reduction by 2028 and hope to be carbon neutral by 2045. There's 5 objectives that we stated to the EPA for our grant. The most significant is to be able to award grants to concrete producers, not just InterMCA members, but all concrete producers, to be able to help them generate EPDs. Okay, and so companies that don't have EPDs at any of their plants will be able to get some money. If you have been at the forefront and have produced EPDs over the last several years, you're not left out of the grant money. You will be able to still get grants from InterMCA to be able to help offset some of the cost with generating those EPDs. So that's the first objective, and that's where most of the money will go, is through those pass-through grants. But there's also money dedicated to help ensure technical proficiency of the concrete industry personnel. What does that mean? It's essentially to help train concrete personnel in gathering the data that's necessary to generate the LCAs for the EPDs. So we want to be able to develop a certification program to help them. Objective 3 is to really enhance and develop some low carbon concrete tools. There's an NRMCA concrete calculator that's available to you now. Just go to the NRMCA webpage, you can find that calculator. But we want to be able to enhance that calculator and also provide specification guidance for those that need it to be able to produce specs with low carbon goals. We also will improve their benchmarks, go from about 8 regions to up to 30, and then eventually 50 regions by 2029. And then also improve PCRs and EPDs for some of those constituent materials, primarily admixtures and lightweight aggregates, but also help Roller Compacted Concrete Council develop benchmarks for RCC pavements. So we will be doing that over about the next 5 years. The starting point for us, we're still in negotiations with EPA to get a contract in place. We feel like we'll have that in place in December or January, and then we will have everything in place by about spring of 2025 so that people can start getting grants. So appreciate the opportunity to come and report what the industry is doing. Look forward to our panel discussion. Thank you very much.